Good morning, everyone. Hello, my name is Alcyril Bakujo, and we discuss about the road of suffrage. While the movement has discussed the quality and the right of the vote since of founding the nation, a key of turning point of the women's suffrage movement was Selena Falls Convention held July 19 to 20, 1848 in Seneca Falls, New York. The meeting was not the first in support of women's rights, but the suffragists viewed it to the meeting that launched the national movement and the cause for the next 70 years. Suffrage supporters worked out to educate the public and lawmakers about the legitimate the right of women to vote. In these lessons, the student will use the suffrage the timeline to explore the women's ideas and actions that lead the ratification of 90th Amendment in 1920 and discuss the women of suffrage movement as the model for peaceful activism. Here are our objectives. The student will define the suffrage and discuss the significance of the women's suffrage movement. The student will expand and explore an information about historical timeline event using the minimum of 3 sources to research the assigned event, discussing the significance of the event and provide examples of how it impacted to the women's suffrage movement, defining the rule of the K of associated with the event. So let's get started. Well, the student are the fact that the women could not legally vote in the United States until the ratification of 90th Amendment in 1920, as the them consider that the fact that although the Constitution was ratified in 1787, women by the law were not be given with the right to the vote for 133 years. As a student, I consider the fact that from the late 18th century, though that 1920 was the women of all races, we are united in belief the universal suffrage, and who demonstrated the protested for the right to vote. A key of turning point, the women's suffrage movement began in Seneca Falls, New York in 1848. Here are the recent examples of activism for change. As a student, identify and discuss at least 2 issues that have generated activism. In some way, how we are messages of protest or activism shared. Is there a universal agreement? I don't think so. So let's proceed. The entry should address: what is the event? What year did it happen? Where did it happen or participated? How did this impact to the suffrage movement? Did it gain national attention? What they think the most important fact to know about event and why? Who organized it? What was the role of this woman or women in the suffrage movement? What was her there? Background? Was that they well known it? If so, why? How did you they to lead or the impact of suffrage movement? What is the most important fact to understand about the women and slash women's? And why? In her words, each group must include the quote of the women and their entry. How do the words reflect to her beliefs? Let's discuss. Women fought to the right vote for over 100 years. However, the movement was not marked by violence. Why do you think it remained largely peaceful? From researching and hearing other presentation, was suffrage movement always unified in their goals and their methods? If not, what were some of the differences in opinions and or tactics? If you had been suffragists of the methods of protest, would you have advocated? How do you think that the majority of Americans, including women, know about the century long struggle to give women to vote? If no, how should society keep the essential history alive? As a class, as a student, I am discussing the qualities these women exemplify as role models. For these extensional activities, The ratification of 90th Amendment was the major step of equality, but women also default toward the equal right of amendment. As for the student research of major issues that the women wanted to change. At the class, less the issues that leaders of the movement, how long did the movement last? After reading the discussing the entry, the student researched the event of the K, of women and women associated with it, using the worksheet of the record fact. Using the minimum of the three cited sources, they will be right in the informative, accurate, and historical history, and for the overview of the provide background using the guidelines provided on the worksheet. Here is the curriculum standard. We determine the kind of sources that will be helpful in answering the complying the supporting questions, taking into consideration of multiple points of view, represented in the sources, the types of sources available, and the potential use of the sources. Evaluating data student, conduct a research in issues that interest by generating ideas, questions, and by the posing problems they gathered, evaluate, synthesizing the data from a variety of sources. For example, print and non-print text artifacts, people are communicate with their discoveries is the way of Dito his of 15:6 to 8 able with relatives influence of various causes of events and development of the past. The common core of arguments support the claim with the reasoned relevant evidence. Support the claim with the logical reasoning and the relevant evidence using the accurate and credible sources and demonstrating an understanding of the topic of the text. While the informative explanatory text examine the typical convey of the concepts, that information through the selection of organization analyzing the relevant. Write the informative explanatory text to examine the type of convey, ideas, concept, information through the selection of organization. Analyzes the relevant contents of the introduced clearly, reviewing what is the follow of organized ideas. Concepts of formation of the broader categories include formatting, for example, headings, graphics, is the charts of tables, and multimedia with the useful of aiding comprehension. That's all. Thank you for listening to our discussion. We would like to introduce my classmates here at the Gulwan Community College, but we are here into having a virtual communication using our apps or which is the technologies, using the phones, using the mobile phones, using the tablets and laptops and etc. So we are suffering from the different problems in our society nowadays during this COVID-19. Was be able to not to enhance our knowledge, but we are going to enter it and to give more efficient and effective ways how we gain more knowledge about it. So that's why we always be think positive, not thinking negative. But also we always pray to the Lord to will be having a done for this sickness in our country. And that's what's all. Thank you. God bless all.